Baruch
Baruch
Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Praise to you, Lord our God, rule of the universe, who's made us play with your commandments and commanded us to busy ourselves with the words of Torah. So with that, we're going to dive into some oral Torah tonight with Pirkei Avot, which is from the Mishnah. Since it's been a month since we studied this text, I will do a quick recap, and then that'll bring us up to where we are tonight. So we start with Ben Zoma's sayings: who is wise, one who earns from everyone; who is mighty, one who subdues their evil inclination; who is rich, one who is happy with what they have; who is honored, one who honors others. Then his friend Ben Azai: be quick in performing a minor commandment, as in the case of a major one, flee from transgression. One commandment leads to another commandment, one transgression leads to another transgression. The reward for one commandment is another commandment. The reward for a transgression is another transgression. Then we have also from Ben Azai: every person has their moment, so recognize that, which is related to Ben Zoma saying, you can learn from everybody. Here it's everybody has a moment of importance, so don't disdain them because they have at least something to contribute. Last time we looked at Rabbi Levitas, who said that you should be humble because in the end you're going to die too. And Rabbi Yochanan ben Baroka, who said that whether you profane the name of heaven, if you profane the name of heaven in secret, it will be revealed at some point, unwittingly or wittingly, it's all the same in profaning the name of God. And that was before everybody could record you on their cell phones. So this brings us to tonight's text. Herb, would you read, please?
Herb is muted.
Herb, you muted.
Unmute, Herb.
Okay, I'll start over again.
Thank you.
Rabbi Ishmael, his son, said, one who learns in order to teach is given the opportunity to study and to teach. But one who learns in order to practice is given the opportunity to learn and to teach and to practice. Rabbi Tzedek said, do not make the Torah a crown for self-exaltation, nor a spade with which to dig, that is, a means for livelihood. So too Hillel used to say, and one that puts the crown of Torah to their own use shall perish. Thus you have learned anyone derives worldly benefit, that is profit, from the words of the Torah, is responsible for their own destruction.
Okay, and some biography.
This Rabbi Ishmael was the son of Rabbi Yochanan ben Berokach, not the Rabbi Ishmael who was killed by the Romans. He lived in the second half of the 100 CE and was a close colleague of Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel II. Rabbi Tzedek lived before the destruction of the second temple, which as a priest he officiated in. He tried to fast for 40 years to prevent it from being destroyed. When he felt like he had to have some nourishment, he would suck out the liquid from fresh figs. When Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai met with General Vespasian, he asked the general for the city of Yavne, the safety of the descendants of Hillel, and a doctor to heal Rabbi Tzedok. The doctor gave Rabbi Tzedok water with bran, and then the next day water with coarser bran, and the next day water with flour, and so on, until he was able to handle regular food again. Although Rabbi Tzedok was a student of Shammai, he often ruled according to Hillel. Alternatively, this might be Rabbi Tzedok, the grandson of the aforementioned Rabbi Tzedok. He was a contemporary of Rabbi Ishmael, but on the other hand, he was taken captive to Rome. How are these sayings relevant to our lives today?
Thank you.
have a question for you.
Please.
If using Torah to make a living will lead to your destruction, who would want to become a rabbi? Well, doesn't a rabbi teach Torah and make a living doing it?
So you raise a good question. There is a story in the Talmud of Rabbi Akiva, who was in prison because the Romans had forbidden Jews from teaching Torah. And his students would come to study with him from the window of the prison cell. And one of them asked, "Why do you keep teaching us Torah when it just antagonizes the Romans?" And Rabbi Akiva said, "More than the calf wants to drink milk, the mother cow wants to give milk."
Oh.
So sometimes, just like if you are a songwriter, the songs bubble up from within you, whether or not anybody's there to hear them, but it is better when you can find someone to hopefully enjoy your song or at least listen to it. Sometimes those who have the soul of an educator feel the need to teach whenever possible.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So, how are these things relevant to our lives today?
Torah is still taught and Torah is still learned.
Mm-hmm. Why would these two sayings be right next to each other?
I think because if you just learn Torah in order to teach it, it's not as valuable as learning Torah to live your life, and as a consequence of that, be able to teach about it.
Perhaps they are next to each other to suggest that teaching comes with the responsibility of not being very self-centered in the actual doing of educating. Because it's really not about you when you're teaching, even though it could have the, I guess, the added benefit of you having some kind of income. It's really about the persons you're educating. The you part is much less involved, and it's more of a kind of almost like a sort of civil service in a way. You're sort of serving society by educating other people within it. So maybe that's why they're right next to each other. It's kind of like a push towards teaching, but also a warning against realizing that, you know, as a teacher, you are really there to serve people rather than serve yourself. That's what I thought.
Perhaps it is more efficient, stronger to teach Torah as a role model rather than in a classroom. Let people learn Torah and live according to Torah by watching how you are living according to Torah.
I would, if I could add something to that, the first one, that's Rabbi Ishmael, I think, talking about the practical, as has been noted, and then that's supposed to be important in the Jewish life, and that's the performance of mitzvot, which is commandments, which is our out action in the world, generally speaking, and you learn Torah to do that. But once you say, well, it's part of being in the world of practice, then the question is, what are the limits, or what is the risk in doing that in the world? And so the other rabbi, Rabbi Tzadok, he takes the position that you shouldn't make a profit of it, and then you're misusing it. So it's supposed to be a practical involvement in the world, but you're not supposed to make your living doing it. And then you have the rabbis, as I recall, disputing whether you have to have a trade. Mostly, I think you're supposed to have something else as a living. And of course, if you don't have a living, you don't have a trade, and you study all the time, then you look for a father-in-law to fund your studies, or in some places, the government. So that's how I see that.
Nice. Thinking about the things in which you personally can teach, how does your personal experience relate to the saying by Rabbi Ishmael?
Well, I did teach chemistry, I practiced chemistry, and I think the practice of chemistry helped me in my teaching to others.
I guess I haven't really, with the two examples I gave, I haven't really taught anyone with them, but I guess just to pick one of them, since I know how to wrap to fill in, and I learned how to, I guess, for practice for the fulfillment of the mitzvah, if I ever had an opportunity, if it ever comes up, I will be able to sort of help someone else do it at a future point. So I guess there's a future opportunity for being able to, I guess, teach and learn the learn part, because I would gain, I guess, experience in just showing somebody how to do something. It's kind of like a different experience versus doing something, for yourself, versus, I guess, teaching somebody else how to do something. So there's like a different perspective involved. I would learn that from that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of what I thought.
Yeah, I think by continuing to practice something, it keeps you humble as a teacher because you're continuing to make mistakes, remember how it feels to be frustrated and to work through things, and then you can bring that to your students or whoever who's trying to learn from you. It can make you more patient.
Hmm.
Now, if you learn just to teach, you'll never really get good at what you are teaching because you haven't used it. You've just relayed what you learned and that's it. But if you learn and practice, presumably you're going to learn from practicing and feed that back into your teaching. And relating it to, well, what Jessie wrote as what she would teach, which was making challah, and that's something that if I wasn't trying to be kind of snarky, I could have put down as well. It's one thing to learn and to tell somebody how to do it sort of academically, but the more you do it, the kind of little tricks that you learn, and you improve your product, and you can pass that on to other people.
I think in light of what Jesse said, if I could apply it in a different area, I spent quite a bit of time in practicing law, teaching people how to sit and have their deposition taken. That is to answer oral questions under oath or affirmation in a lawsuit, in a civil case, particularly. It's actually very hard, but the first thing is to just require the truth as the answer. That's the lawyer's. The lawyer ought to the client ought to teach the client or instruct the client to not to tell the truth at his deposition. It doesn't mean the client has to volunteer anything, however. But so I learned to do that, and it's very interesting in a way. But then I had to have my own deposition taken in the case, and that was very enlightening to me to see how I went about it. Not the truth part, but all sorts of other parts, and managing the tone in dealing with the opposing counsel. And it's really a lot to reflect on that you learn only by doing for yourself, perhaps. You can't quite learn it in the same way. And I don't know how to make challah.
David, I had a question. Is if lately I've been reading some things about some Hasidim, and it seems that many had different trades that they did, and they weren't necessarily, they didn't necessarily go around and try to teach Judaism, but they had, they taught within their own groups, but that's not what they did for a living. They somehow kept that separate. And in a way, I think they were able to do what they did for a living, but not give up how they lived their life.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Do you see that as being relevant to the Rabbi Ishmael saying, the Rabbi Tzadok saying, or both? You're on mute.
I guess both.
Yep. And it's a model for us. So looking at the Hebrew for a second, at the end of the first saying, one who learns in order to practice is given the opportunity to learn and to teach and to practice. The last four words are Le'omod u'lelamed lishmor v'la'asot. Some of you may recognize this phrase from the prayer Ahava Rabbah. Sometimes it's sung Le'omod u'lelamed lishmor v'la'asot. Ahava Rabbah is a prayer about how God loves us, and therefore God gave us the Torah. Texts are often in communication with, in discussion with each other. So why would this prayer that we say each morning about God loving us and giving us the Torah be quoting from this text in Pirkei Avot? What would be the connection?
Because the Torah made all of this possible. Having the Torah at all, sort of a prerequisite for any of these statements here. At least within their own context, they seem to be discussing, the study and teaching of Torah itself. Without the Torah, what are they teaching? It seems like the predicate, I guess, for this whole thing.
Mhm.
At its starting point. It can be taken to other places, but I think that's the original context. Maybe that's why.
Absolutely. That is certainly one connection.
But we've learned that even though Abraham never saw the Torah, he still practiced the virtues that are in the Torah that we were given. The Torah per se wasn't necessary in some respects.
Okay, let's go on. Well, any other questions or comments or real life connections to these texts before we go on? All right, seeing none. Carol Koenig, would you read our next text, please? It is a short text and a long biography.
And I defer because I have a sore throat.
You can defer because you have a sore throat.
Thank you.
No problem. Carol Fink.
Some call this Pirkei Avot 4:6, some call it 4:8. Rabbi Yoshi said, whoever honors the Torah is themselves honored by others, and whoever dishonors the Torah is themselves dishonored by others. Rabbi Yoshi ben Halafta, a contemporary of Rambam Gamil II, was referred to sometimes as Rabbi Yoshi the Great, a leader of the post-Bar Kokhba period. He was ordained by Rabbi Judah ben Baba during a period when the Romans were threatening death to anybody who was ordained, or lived in the city where ordination happened. Rabbi Judah ben Baba ordained Rabbi Yoshi ben Halafta and Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Shimon, Rabbi Judah, and Rabbi Elazar ben Shemua between two cities. When they were discovered by the Romans, their elderly teacher told them to flee and vowed to make himself an immovable boulder for the Romans. He was pierced by 300 Roman spears, but the students got away. Rabbi Judah ben Baba is one of the 10 martyrs that we read about in the Yom Kippur martyrology service. Rabbi Yoshi ben Halafta was a leather worker, but he was one of the first Jews interested in history and is given credit for writing the Sefer Olam Rabbah, a book of Jewish history from the creation of the world through the Hadrianic persecutions. The book, in fact, mostly dates from his time, so it's entirely possible that he wrote it. He also transmitted many traditions from his father, so he had a historical teaching mindset. Rabbi Yoshi also held a skeptical view of some of the Tanakh, arguing that the divine presence never fully descended to the earth, nor did Elijah ascend to heaven. Once, Rabbi Yoshi ben Halafta was talking with a Roman lady, and she wanted to know what God had been doing since the sixth day of creation. Making marriage matches. Really? You think that it takes God to pull that off? Why, I have 1,000 male and female slaves. I'll match them all tonight. The next day, she sent for Rabbi Yoshi ben Halafta. You were right. This morning, I had 1,000 people complaining to me about the matches that I had made. It must take God to make successful matches. How are these sayings relevant to our lives today?
All right, thank you.
Welcome.
All right, whoever honors the Torah is themselves honored by others. Whoever dishonors the Torah is themselves dishonored by others. How is it relevant to our lives today?
We're dealing a lot with accountability in today's world. So maybe that's how it's relevant.
Great. What else?
One thought I had was if you honor the Torah by studying it, and then you study with others, when they gain something from your study or your perspective that they hadn't considered, then that's and they would be thankful to you for that, then whoever honors the Torah, then they're being honored by the people that they're also passing on their study to. Kind of a full circle here.
Hmm.
I think everyone appreciates like a good teacher or someone that just points out something to you and suggests a way for you to look at something that you hadn't considered. And so I think when you're grateful for that, and then you're honoring that person as for what he's given you. Maybe.
Yeah.
I think if we combine this one with the one we just studied and kind of do a jumping off from what Carol just said about studying the Torah to practicing what's in the Torah. I think what it is saying is if you practice, people can see what you're doing and they'll honor you for it. And if you don't, they'll see it and you will be less in their eyes. They'll give you less respect.
Hmm.
If you teach Torah and don't practice it, the students you teach to will learn not to practice it themselves.
So let's put this text in conversation with one we saw earlier tonight from Ben Zoma, who asked who is honored, and then he answers, one who honors others. Now Rabbi Yosei is saying, who is honored, one who honors the Torah. Do they agree? Do they disagree? How do we see these two texts working with each other? All right. Seeing that we don't seem to have a lot to say on the matter, let's do another text. Gary, would you read this one, please?
Where are we
Rabbi-
starting? It's 7.
Yep.
Some call this 4:9. Rabbi Ishmael, his son, said, one who refrains themselves from judgment, alternate translation, from the office of judge, rids themselves of enmity, robbery, and false swearing. But one who in their heart treats the judicial process lightly is foolish, wicked, and arrogant. Biography. This Rabbi Ishmael is the son of Rabbi Yoshi ben Halafta, not the Rabbi Ishmael who was killed by the Romans. Rabbi Ishmael succeeded his father as the leader of the town of Sepphoris, and almost all of the halakha he teaches is in his father's name. He went to learn from Rabbi Judah Hanasi and had to step over some other students to get to a spot. Rabbi Judah's assistant said to him, "Who are you and what are you doing here?" "I'm Ishmael, the son of Rabbi Yoshi ben Halafta, and I'm here to learn from Rabbi Judah." "Are you sure you're worthy to learn from him?" "Was Moses worthy to learn from God? Are you Moses? And is the teacher God?" Eventually, he was involved in Rabbi Judah Hanasi's editing of the Mishnah. Rabbi Ishmael was also very careful not to take bribes. He owned an orchard, and somebody rented a part of it and paid every Friday with a small portion of the fruit he picked that week. One week, the man brought the fruit on Thursday. When Rabbi Ishmael asked why, the man said that he was a party in a lawsuit being decided by Rabbi Ishmael that day, and so he figured he would save himself a trip. Rabbi Ishmael did not accept the fruit, and he recused himself from the case. How are these things relative to our lives today?
Thank you, Gary. All right. Judgment.
There are some court justices that could learn from this.
Hmm.
Excuse me, in that first part, who is the more righteous, the person who refuses to take the seat of a judge, or the person who treats the judicial process foolishly? I mean, the guy who's treating the judicial process foolishly is obviously not a very trustworthy person. But then should somebody who is capable refuse to act as a judge so that the other person is the only one who will take it?
All right, that's a good question. I'll throw it out to the group. Is it better to not be a judge so that you don't have enmity, robbery, and false swearing? Or is it better to be a judge and not take it lightly so that you're not foolish, wicked, or arrogant?
I think, are those the only alternatives if you make that decision? to be a judge or not to be a judge. I mean, it's not like a multiple choice where you get to pick, am I going to be foolish, wicked, or arrogant? I mean, there are other options.
No, the question is that you have two people who are being considered for a position as judge. One of them would make a very good judge, but doesn't want to be bothered with all the mess that's involved with it. So that's left up to the second one, and he's the one who would treat it foolishly. If you're that first person, what do you do? Do you turn away from it, or do you accept the responsibility?
Yeah, so these are two different questions. Herb is posing the question of, if there are two people, one who would be a good judge, but wants to refrain from judgment or from being a judge so they don't have to deal with enmity, robbery, and false swearing. And the other possibility is someone who everybody knows is going to treat the judicial process lightly, and thus be foolish, wicked, and arrogant. So then Herb's question that he's posing is, should the first person take the position of judge so that the other person does not get the position? A different question is whether it is better to not be a judge or to be a judge who does not treat the process lightly. These are two related but separate questions.
If I'm understanding what was the context, I think we, as a society, we want people who are willing to be a judge and withstand the enmity and robbery and false swearing, because we need someone to make the decision. And I can think of any number of times when I read something in the paper and thought to myself, oh, I'm glad I didn't have to make that decision. I don't think I could stand up to the enmity and and all that. But I'm very grateful for those people who are judges and take it seriously and know that at times you'll be ridiculed and harassed and everything for your decision. But you made the decision that needed to be made, and we're all better for it. But not sure where I'm going with this, but anyway.
Thank you. Okay, now I'm going to hone in on the first half of the statement. One who refrains from themselves from judgment rids themselves of enmity, robbery, and false swearing. So if we take that as personally judging others or making a judgment in a certain situation, how do you refrain from judgment?
You have a seat on the bench, you can't.
It's true. If your job is to judge, then you have to judge. If you're just a regular person, like, people judge others, but how do you not?
I'm having trouble with the reading of the alternative translation.
Mhm.
I keep reading this as one who refrains themselves from judgment. That is, one who does things so that they won't be judged. Therefore, won't experience enmity, robbery, and having people swear falsely about them.
Mm.
So live a good life and you will avoid bad things.
All right, so you're reading this, Ellen, less as refraining from judging others and rather acting in such a way that others won't judge you or won't feel the need to judge you.
Yeah,
And then that keeps you from the problems that come from that.
right. And if you treat the judicial process, the process of being judged lightly, that's just stupid. It's the way I'm reading the second part of it.
So again, not reading the second part as being the one who judges others, but being someone who is involved, who is being judged.
Right, or potentially could be judged.
How do you prevent people around you from developing opinions about you, whether they're truthful or not? In other words,
You can't avoid it. All you can do is be the best person you can to reduce the opportunities for people to judge you unfairly.
it's like not playing baseball on Saturday because it's Shabbos, but somebody else says, look at that foolish person that won't play baseball on Saturday. Can't win.
Well, if you are an observant Jew, I don't think you'd really care about the opinion of somebody who says, you know, you're foolish for not playing baseball on Shabbat.
All right. Recognizing the time, I'm going to end our discussion.